It's a beautiful fall day, and I'm lucky to be out on the new Norco Fluid A1. It's an alloy trail bike that they just redesigned, and it is definitely a solid build. This bike comes with 140 millimeter fork up front, 130 millimeters of travel in the rear. I always just love getting these mid and short travel bikes on test, just because they have such a, you can really feel the characteristics of the frame come through on shorter travel, and they're quite nimble. This Fluid just seems to check every box of the kind of bike that I would want to be riding in this travel category. First off, it's got just like really nice out of the box geometry numbers that kind of know that I can rely on to give the bike a just nice stable feel without feeling too long or slack. It's got 435 millimeter chainstay in size large. They change the chainstay lengths depending on what size bike you buy, which just makes so much sense. It's got a 480 millimeter reach. It's also got this just under 77 degree seat-tube angle. But honestly, in reality, in the real world, it feels very steep. And I'm a big fan of that. I just feel like perfect. Now my hips are really centered more than they used to be between the two wheels. So you can kind of camp out while you're climbing in this perfect position where you just don't have to fuss. Like if you encounter a steep climb, you just keep your butt in the saddle. And you're not like keeping your chin down to your stem, trying to keep that front wheel on the ground. This bike just really struck me. Numbers are one thing. It's just like truly has a very steep seat angle. And I also appreciate that on a shorter travel build, because sometimes some of the shorter travel bikes don't come as steep, which can be kind of unfortunate because it still is difficult to get up really steep climbs. Limited rear travel with a super steep seat angle. You have this beautiful recipe for the ability to efficiently climb super steep roads, trails, technical uphill kind of rock gardens and stuff. Just so much less overwhelming. And I know Norco's just been super big on that with all their bikes, delivering this very centered climbing position. One major theme of this bike for me has just been how grounded feeling it is. That's really not a word I'd reach for with a bike with this little travel very often. And you also get like a pretty active rear suspension on this bike. I don't feel like the Fluid is as much of a out of the saddle kind of bike. Doesn't seem to have like a lot of anti-squat, but it does, on the flip side of that, kind of generate traction in all situations. The cockpit feels very medium to me with how steep the seat angle is. Usually a 480 would feel on kind of the longer side, but they've taken advantage of that extra room and they've pushed the hips of the rider forwards, which is just, once again, a great spot to be. It's just a very balanced feeling bike, up and down. This bike strikes me as like one of the better trail bikes out there for kind of getting around tight backcountry uphill switchbacks, because you got that shorter chainstay and that super forward seat position. Keeps your balance, keeps your body weight further forward, but at the same time they're not really achieving that with some Mondo chainstay. So you can kind of creep around, very agile going uphill, which is just such a lovely thing in a bike. makes this bike just a really good option for those tough national forest missions, backcountry rides that just kind of demand something on the climbing front, the efficiency front, and as we'll get to, the kind of downhill capabilities. This bike is so fun. It's just got this weird mixture. It's like small travel agility, but at the same time, you got this very planted feel. And I don't know if that comes from the suspension linkage or the shock tuning, but it just has this very calm demeanor where it's just like, we got this, no problem. It's got a very relaxed personality in high stress situations. Like, just totally went deep on that, bottomed that box 34, and you know, it all felt right. All is well with the world. It's also like a very kind of race bred feeling bike with all that stability and calmness. Yeah. Ew. It also just, something is interesting about this fluid where it just doesn't feel like the trail vibrations are making it through the travel. And with only, you know, 140, 130, this doesn't really seem all that realistic. I don't know where this bike stores all that energy. Tell you what, the dirt is very in need of some moisture around these parts. I am ready for the rain for once. This bike just really pivots around the hips. It's so impressive. I assume that's just a matter of kind of balancing the geometry of the bike, but my goodness. And I do have the shock tunings wide open, compression, rebound, everything. But even with that wide open, it just feels fast, feels ready to take repetitive hits. But at the same time, feels very stable. This bike, you know, I feel like it should be a really lively feeling poppy bike. But the cool thing is it's actually quite stable. You might not think that when you see, you know, 130 millimeters. I feel like I could kind of keep pace with a big high travel bike. And once again, it's just got this like very calm demeanor. Just kind of feels like the world slows down around you, and yeah, you have more time to make decisions or something. And just being at this like 130 size travel bike, the fluid just really pumps around nicely, and it just feels like it's very easy to get it to change direction. It just has, once again, this like pivot around your hips feeling that I think is just like a balance of chainstay length to reach and bottom bracket height. I feel like I can really just kind of wind up on these dry corners, even though there's not tons of grip. And I just kind of feel like I know what the bike's gonna do. The specs this bike comes with are just really solid. I've been so impressed with how well this Box 34 fork holds up, especially when it's combined with this bike's geometry. That rear shock just kind of can take a beating. Oh man, this is getting dusty. And really been impressed by the Vittoria tires. Maybe most notably the TRP brakes have just been really amazing. Kind of sit in the middle power-wise between SRAM codes and Shimano 4 pistons. So yeah, really impressed. So jealous that, you know, beginner mountain bike riders can just kind of get on a bike like this and experience this level of performance. It makes me jealous for what I started out riding, you know. All right, so who is this fluid for? I think this fluid is just for every mountain biker. It's an amazing bike option for more beginner riders that just get this insane package to start out with and ride basically any terrain on this bike. And then more advanced riders on a budget, I don't think this bike's gonna hold you back whatsoever. And probably the most on point demographic for this bike would be somebody looking for a bike that they can just do big rides out in the mountains with. Woo! If you enjoyed this review, consider subscribing to the YouTube channel for the full write-up. Head on over to freehubmag.com.